right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the June the 5th Town Board meeting to order. The first business I have, I need to have a motion to excuse Mr. Mashburn. We just got a call a minute ago he would not be here. Okay, second. Okay, takes care of it. The second order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Lily Vitale to lead us in the pledge. Lily graduated from high school. She aced her senior project, and she did it working some with the town. And we're just so proud of her. She's getting ready to go off to University of North Carolina at Greensboro on a scholarship. So we're just so proud of Lily. So Lily, if you will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now Lily, don't forget us down there in the big city. Okay, the next item of business is the adoption of the town board agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to add or subtract on the town board agenda for tonight? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt as presented.
I'll make the motion. I didn't know if you got it or
What?
We're fighting over who gets to.
I heard a second, that's all I heard. So, okay, all in favor? Okay, the approval of the May 1st and May the 15th town board minutes. Everybody had a chance to look them over? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Second? All in favor? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 or 4 public hearings, and I have nobody signed up to speak during those public hearings, so we'll come back to that in just a few minutes. The first public hearing we have is for the proposed fiscal year 2017 and 2018 Town of Franklin budget. And there's no one signed up to speak for or against the budget, is that correct? Okay. All right, Ms. Woodard, do you have anything that you would like to say concerning the budget?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Board, what we ended up doing for your presentation tonight, you have a new proposed budget in front of you. It simply looks at decreasing your contingency of the original proposed amount of $70,000 down to $64,500. And it places that into your economic development of $5,500, which brings the grand total of economic development to $12,500.
Any questions? If not, I will declare the public hearing closed on the budget. The next public hearing is for property located at 14 Brittany Lane. If anyone would like to speak to that public hearing on Brittany Lane. Mr. Setzer, you're up, sir. And John Henning, if you will.
Mr. Mayor, just as elected, I would just say that these 3 public hearings are part of the process to take the next step in the minimum housing process for all 3 of these properties. You all have packets of information about it. We can review this again when we ask you to take action on it. But they all have been found to be beyond repair as defined in the minimum housing code, and none of them have been repaired or remediated or removed as actually they were ordered to be by the land use administrator. So once we take action on these ordinances tonight, we'll take the next step in having those judicially enforced.
No, you just, in your packet, there's one for each one of the sites. And
There's also some tax information showing what the county has the properties appraised at, the structures appraised at. And there's a statement from me, just kind of the whole process of what I found, and some general info along with pictures.
Anything you want to add to it?
Nope, unless you have any questions.
Anything for the board? If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed for the property located at 14 Rickman Lane. The next is the property located at 76 Hillcrest Avenue.
Mayor,
Yes,
I don't mind being 5 minutes ahead on that one, we'll do 10 minutes ahead on the other. We take care of a few things on down the list and then come back to those.
yeah, fine.
Just in case somebody shows up that
Yeah.
was scheduled for that time.
Okay. All right, let's see.
He looks good.
All right, Avram, you want to come up and, you're signed up for the public session? Oh, come on up, and if you would, for the record, state your name, and as I said, we have a 5-minute limit.
Avram Friedman. I had thought that this was going to be an agenda item. This resolution was not on the agenda, I don't see it.
It is on the agenda.
Is it? Okay, then I'm missing something. All right, well, good evening, council members and Mayor Scott, and thanks for offering this opportunity. I'd like to speak to you briefly to urge you to adopt the Climate Solutions Resolution, which is on the agenda apparently. This important and urgent resolution is part of a major nationwide campaign begun by a group of scientists at Stanford University who are attempting to address the climate crisis that's engulfing the world, including the community here in Franklin. What this group of scientists has done is remarkable and a great gift to all of us. Their effort should not be wasted. They need our help to implement the prescription they labor to develop for the sake of all of us, our children and our grandchildren. What they've done is a comprehensive study of each state in the United States to determine how we can reach the goal of 100% renewable energy by no later than the year 2050, which is necessary to avoid the worst consequences of climate change. This paper is an outline of that plan for the state of North Carolina. But scientists can't implement this plan by themselves. They need our help. It will take local communities all over the country voicing our support to create the public policies that will enable this plan to be implemented. Climate change is a local issue, directly and profoundly impacting this community and people who live here, your constituents. Because of climate change, we are experiencing extreme and changing weather conditions that impact public health, commerce, and stress on our region's economic and natural resources. Last year, we experienced one of the worst droughts on record. People were reporting their wells were drying up. Forest fires were rampant in western North Carolina because of the dryness of the fuel on the forest floors. Our air quality was in the red zone from the smoke as it became unhealthy to breathe and engage in outdoor activities. But that's just the beginning of how we can expect climate change and poor air quality to impact the community here in western North Carolina. We're being informed of how more tropical diseases and insects are beginning to migrate north as the planet warms. I live in neighboring Jackson County, that's become home to fire ants and beetles, once known in this region. Perhaps the same is happening here in Macon County. Mosquito-borne diseases like West Nile virus and encephalitis are beginning to appear in greater numbers. Habitats are changing, endangering animals and plants unique to our region. Fish in Lake Glenville were found to have an unhealthy level of mercury content due to the burning of coal from nearby power plants. Our tourist economy is strongly dependent on the preservation of forests and mountains, our rivers and streams, our air and water quality. But these are being threatened by air pollution and climate change generated by the burning of fossil fuels. This could not be a more local issue to communities throughout western North Carolina. I feel, and I'm sure that many of your constituents feel, that it is our responsibility to do what is ever in our power to safeguard the health and economy and stability of this community. When you have an opportunity to address public policy related to climate change, air and water pollution, I believe you should take advantage of that opportunity for the purpose of fully serving your community and fulfilling that responsibility. To that end, again, I urge you to review and adopt this resolution endorsing the Climate Solutions Project and its program for achieving 100% renewable energy in North Carolina no later than by the year 2050. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, was anyone else that came in late in case on the public hearings? Okay. Madam Manager, that resolution, I don't think I put it in my copy.
What we can do is, we sent that out in a separate email to
Okay.
the board, under the impression that the gentleman may be coming to speak
Okay.
tonight. So the board, since you've adopted the agenda as presented, you can amend that, or you
Okay.
can vote on this at your July.
Okay,
July.
let's just amend it to have it for a vote, right after new business. Would that work? If the board would so approve it?
It's not on the agenda, we've already voted to approve the agenda. I think it's something that we can handle at the July meeting.
Well, let's have a vote and see if we want to put it on the agenda for tonight.
And Mr. Mayor, I would just to urge a little bit of caution in that respect, because I think it's been a very good practice to not take action on things that come up in that meeting and brought to your attention in public session. So it might be better to let it go.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board? Anybody want to vote on it tonight or postpone it for a month?
I'd like time to review it, and I'd rather us vote on it in July, since it's not on here, anybody, like,
All right, you're gonna make, okay, so,
You won't need a motion.
okay. Everyone will vote on it next month. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
before you do leave that topic, and since we did have a couple minutes to kill, I just wanted to see if there was any interest on the town's part in looking at, I don't know if you've noticed, there are a lot of municipalities that are exploring what resources they might have to install some solar power, if nothing else, for their own enterprises and so forth. I think you might have the setup to do some of that here with the old landfill property, and it's actually maybe close enough to supply power directly to some of your own enterprise operations. Is that something that the board would be interested in hearing something about if we can go?
One of the things in this resolution,
Not a whole
You know
lot.
what I would have been interested in, if I'd ever remember to bring it up during the time before we get ready to vote on our budget, is to have a couple of charging stations out here.
but we've looked into that, yeah.
For vehicles.
Electric cars.
Yeah, looks like we've got a good setup to have it.
It's a great idea.
It'd be a mighty good gesture, I think.
There may be some grant funding available for those.
Solar is absolutely going to be the next generation's power. And as soon as we get embracing that and all, it's the ultimate source, and that if it's gone, we're with it. But yes, John, I think you're right, if we can utilize it. You mentioned the old landfill?
Yes, sir.
My gosh, have you ever been out there lately?
Not a lot.
It's like an eight acre pool table. It's just capped up there on a mesa, on a bluff. It's probably, if the truth was told, the cooking is probably down to a manageable level underneath the methane and stuff, that it could be used for a lot of different
Yeah,
purposes.
methane capture is also a big alternative energy.
Okay, y'all are getting off on stuff that's not on the agenda. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
If it's gonna happen to me, it's gonna happen to y'all also. And it's now 7:15, so I'll declare the public hearing for property located at 76 Hillcrest Avenue open. Mr. Setzer.
Yeah, same as the last one, you got in your packet, you'll see statement and some tax records on the property and some attached pictures. This one's been a hot topic for a long time. You know, there was a fire there about 10 years ago, and neighbors have had a lot of concern over the past years, and with the property owner really not, other than just moving stuff around, has really never done anything. So I think this is what we're going to move forward with the ordinance that's presented tonight.
All right, does anyone on the board have any questions of Mr. Setzer? All right, none appearing, I will declare the public hearing closed on the property at 76 Hillcrest Avenue. The next hearing is at 7:20, so what do y'all want to do for 5 minutes?
That's pretty close.
All right, I'm going to declare the fact that I think we can move on. This is the public hearing for property located at 456 Pauline Avenue. What's that, sir?
Yeah, this is the other one that's in your packet. It's a house, it's actually in our ETJ, it's not in the city limits, but it's a house that was growed up. The previous, or the owner, it has a single owner, and he cleaned some of the brush off the house after the initial violation, but then agreed on himself to tear the house down, but then price kept going up, and found asbestos and some more, and then eventually got to where he refused to tear it down, even though after the finding the floor fell in, the roof is falling in, and the house, it's got the tax records are in it as well, so he agreed it needed to be tore down, and even his construction company said it needed to be tore down, was the best interest, but then once he started seeing the cost, he refused to do so. So he hasn't complied with the order as well, and he's an out-of-state owner and hasn't been to the house in about 20 years. So good debate, just sitting there falling in. So that's why the ordinance, I think, is a good one to move forward with, to have it removed as well.
Any questions, Mr. Setzer, from the board? Hearing none, I will declare this public hearing closed. And we've had the public session, so under new business, board action regarding the proposed fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. Any discussion from the board?
Motion to adopt is presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, the property, board action regarding the property at 14 Brittany Lane. Any discussion from the board? Any comments?
What's the appropriate motion?
I would think, Mr. Mayor, unless there's strong opposition from council, it would be appropriate to take all three of these in one fell swoop. One motion to adopt all three ordinances would be appropriate.
I would have no problem with that whatsoever. If the board so approves, do I hear a motion to adopt all three at the same time? Second. Second. All in favor? All right, street closing request. Madam Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Board, what we have before us tonight is a request from the Franklin radio station, and I just actually spoke with Mr. Dave Lynn, who's assisting with the event as well, and we wanted to add one additional request to this. They're requesting to close Iola Street and Phillips Street on Saturday, August the 26th, from 1 o'clock p.m. until 5:30 p.m. for the 60th year celebration of the Franklin radio station.
Okay, any discussion from the board?
I move that we approve.
Second. All in favor?
60 years.
Got 60 years behind you there.
To the FSC.
All right, Ms. Doster, you have a budget amendment?
I actually have three that's in your
All right.
packet.
The first one is for the water and sewer department. It's to appropriate an insurance settlement check for a claim on one of the pump houses in the amount of $3,027, and also additional funds from the sale of surplus assets through GovDeals for $3,137 for a total of $6,164. Then the second budget amendment is for the Tourism Development Authority. It's to appropriate additional revenues for 16-17 that we have collected for local occupancy tax of $5,264. And then the last one is for the police department, which is to appropriate an insurance settlement check for a claim for 2006 Crown Vic total loss, and that's for $3,255.
Okay, any discussion from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept all three. Counselor, would that be acceptable? Yes, okay.
I'll make my motion.
Motion, okay, second. All in favor? All right, the next is permission from the board to advertise the town planning board vacancy. Mr. Setson, you're up, sir.
Yeah, just recently had a board member had to resign from the town planning board, so it left a vacancy, Mr. Todd Duval. And we've also had a vacancy for a period of time for an alternate member for ETJ. That's somebody that just lives in the ETJ, not in the city limits. So we're just asking to advertise those, try to get some applicants.
Any discussion from the board? No comments. All right, I'll entertain a motion to advertise the position for the vacancy on the town planning board. So, second? All in favor? All right, Madam Manager, you had some tax releases and tax overpayments.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Board. The first one is just, it is for Esther Peters. It was a tax release in the amount of $63.14. No board action is required, as administration can waive anything less than $100 as long as the town board is notified of it. The second is a refund request from the Clapp Family Limited Partnership in the amount of $2,455.73. This parcel, part of it was being taxed inside the city limits when it was actually part of the county. So they're owed a refund of the $2,455.73.
Okay. Any discussion from the board? Okay. Hear a motion to accept the manager's tax releases and tax overpayments. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. The next is a reappointment of Cheryl Pulliam to the Tourism Development Authority. Madam Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Board. The Tourism Development Authority voted at their last board meeting on Monday, May the 8th, to recommend the reappointment of Cheryl Pulliam to the Tourism Development Authority Board. This appointment will be for a 2-year term, effective June the 5th, 2017, until June the 5th, 2019. And Ms. Pulliam is employed with Macon Furniture Mart.
And this is a reappointment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion to that effect? Second? All in favor? The reappointment of Josh Drake to the Tourism Development Authority. Madam Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Board. This is the Tourism Development Authority again voted at their May 8th meeting to recommend the reappointment of Mr. Josh Drake to the Tourism Development Authority Board for an appointment beginning June the 5th, 2017 through June the 5th, 2019. And Mr. Drake is the owner of Mulligan's Bar and Grill.
That's who he's representing?
Yes, sir.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, entertain a motion to reappoint Mr. Drake to the Tourism Development Authority.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor? Okay. The next item is a discussion on the North Carolina Smoky Mountain Blueways Advisory Council. This is something that has come to me, and gosh, I don't know, there are about 20 different members. Everything from the Smoky Mountain Host of North Carolina, Department of Forest Service, the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians, and the list just goes on and on. But what this is a non-regulatory collaborative partnership committed to the coordination, interpretation, and promotion of resource conservation, public access, and recreational opportunities in the rivers and lakes of the Upper Little Tennessee watershed for the purpose of increased human, watershed, and economic health. This is non-binding. We can get out of it if we so approve it, and there's no money involved in this whatsoever. It's just basically an organization of everybody that's got an interest in the rivers and lakes of western North Carolina. The county will appoint one member, the chair of the county commission, and then the mayors of the various towns will be appointed. And then we've got, all the towns around here are going to be signing on. Then Duke Energy has a representative, Downhill Outdoor Center, and the TVA. It sounded to me like it's a pretty good thing, and I would like for authorization of the board to go ahead and sign us on.
What would be the motion?
Council, you got a motion that we should use on this?
Looks as though what we're being asked to do is enter into a memorandum of understanding.
Yes. It's non-binding, there's no money involved in it.
So I think that would be the appropriate motion would be to enter into the memorandum of understanding regarding Blue Ways Advisory Council as presented.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I heard a second, okay. This is not my night, I'll tell y'all that right there. So, second, all in favor? Any opposition, Carol?
Who does the appointments?
For something like this?
Yeah, I mean, do we need to appoint the mayor on it? That's what I'm wondering, if we're sitting here addressing that, is that something that, I mean, you seem like it'd be appropriate, if the board was so willing to go ahead and address it, you know, to recommend our mayor for appointment, or if we have, I don't know who has the appointing authority.
I think the mayor has appointing authority, but I like to let the board do it as a matter of courtesy.
Well, I move that we appoint Bob Scott as a representative.
Put it on the register.
I'll second that.
All in favor? All right, the next is this discussion of regulation of late night parties. Council, I think you are going to present and discuss this ordinance.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. At your May 15th meeting to discuss the budget, budget work session, I gave to Summer to distribute to you a memo about sort of different regulatory ways you have to approach this problem of folks making noise late at night in town, nearby occupied structures. The draft ordinance that I have in front of you is the one that you could adopt tonight if it's something you feel so inclined to take on. It is in the mode of a police power ordinance, meaning you are going to effectively be declaring parties as I've defined them here as nuisance gatherings, and that's, I think as I said in the memo, I think on a First Amendment sort of basis, I think it's better to say the problem is the gathering, it's not what you're there for. I don't think we need to go up and say, are you people partying? And in that case, you're going to the pokey. I'm not going to get into that.
You gotta ask or not.
That's right. So what this seeks to do then is to say basically a gathering of, and I've said 10 or more, you folks help me with this, because this is my drafting, and if you think a higher or lower number is more appropriate, we can certainly consider that. But I have a grouping of 10 or more persons in or outdoors between the hours of midnight and 7 a.m. within 250 feet of an occupied dwelling. The idea being you're declaring that as a detrimental sort of health, safety, and welfare condition, and also detrimental to the peace of the town. That's what nuisance or police power ordinances are meant to get at. I think that there's a good argument based on the complaints that you have already been fielding, that we've got good evidence of the kind of problem you're trying to approach with it. And I think trying to fairly narrowly define it. So that said, this is, you could take a longer view, and I think eventually it would be good to look at this as a land use type matter, because that would take a public hearing and adoption, because it's a zoning sort of restriction that's not required for a police power ordinance. It feels more like land use to me. It's about how somebody's going to employ their property. And in fact, what Justin's research about what other jurisdictions have done with this, he asked, town planners, his brethren, that by and large it is approached as a land use matter, not a sort of a police nuisance type of a problem. The approach, I think, would be pretty similar, and it is about these sort of gathering of too many folks and in too close an area to a dwelling. Now, you can take your time and consider that. You could enact this ordinance tonight and have some restriction, whereas we don't have any at the moment about this particular problem.
Can I ask something?
You certainly may, yes, ma'am.
Now you have 10 people, but in my neighborhood, we were once subjected to very loud parties, I guess you would call them. But many fewer people, maybe 4 or 5 people just screaming and laughing and hollering 4 o'clock in the morning.
And then the Scots moved out of the neighborhood.
Actually, I once lived there. I did. Could we not say 2 or more? Or is that too
Or just a
subjective?
gathering, you have to define how many people it is.
Yeah.
Is
I
that-
think to be enforceable, you better define it. And I think if you're, and I don't know if the chief, Chief, did you have a chance to?
I've read over it, I think it reads well, and I think it would work. I think 10's a fair number, but be my recommendation.
So if there's 9 people just totally tearing it up and you go there, y'all can't do anything with it?
Why?
I mean, really?
Yeah, there's 20 there to tell them to get.
I do know one thing, whatever we do, I'd like to see this adopted tonight. I don't want to subject our police department to another month of some of this stuff that's going on.
There's a lot of reasons why that's the very reason you don't want to rush into something. Bad circumstances make bad laws. Trying to, you put a Band-Aid on something real quick. The first hearing, probably the most prudent thing is to consider it as part of our land use. Maybe we're not going to get there, but I certainly, if we're sitting here talking about the numbers and this and that, and then worried about what's going to happen the next Saturday night, this board doesn't need to be in that knee-jerk of a response. We're more deliberative than that, I believe. I certainly.
Mr. Collins, I don't consider this a knee-jerk reaction at all. Our police have gotten called out time after time after time. It's been brought before this board time after time that we've got a
And
problem.
this is the first time it's before us tonight. On the board of, we've never had an action like this before in the history that I know of, and it's because of a one certain type of incident. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think it is just because of one type of incident. There have been other incidents. We're not talking about just one, are we, Chief?
There's been more than one, but
That's what I'm talking about.
From the same source.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, I wouldn't have drafted this if I didn't think it was legal and
I-
workable.
And I'm in total agreement with you. We batted this thing around for, I don't know how long now. And we can postpone it, but at some point, you have to bite the bullet and go ahead. If we get in a problem with it, we get in a problem. What if we get in a problem with it because we don't have this? What's the pleasure of the board?
I see the penalties initially as just a warning citation.
And the penalty, I appreciate you pointing that out, the penalty section is sort of based on your other civil penalty ordinances that gives you a warning first and then a $25 citation, 100, 200. And only non-payment of those things is a criminal sanction.
Where does it go if somebody just doesn't pay?
So if you had gone through the levels of citation, really you could, I mean, the third and subsequent citation is another one. So each night, if they have another one, that's a new citation. But then what your ordinance says, you have, in order to have it's sort of like when we talked about parking regulation, in order to keep some of your civil fines, you have kept it out of the realm of criminal penalties, because those are, if you collect a fine for a criminal sanction, it is supposed to be paid to the local school board, because of the constitutional, North Carolina constitutional provision that says all local fines and forfeitures are the property of the local school board. So the way that your other penalty provisions work is just like this. It's civil fines and civil sanctions that you could pursue as a civil matter. You know, you can pursue payment of them from that person by small claims or whatever. But the failure to pay them within 72 hours, that refers to the criminal sanction that you also have the authority to create. It makes it a misdemeanor. The third.
To be heard in court?
Yes.
What if someone wants to appeal?
If they are in on a misdemeanor charge, then they're under the auspices of the district court, appeal superior, and then on from there.
But if someone wanted just to challenge, yeah, well, that would be done at whatever time they got into whatever.
Right.
Court.
I mean, if they raise like a constitutional challenge or something along those lines, or what have you. Or you mean just on a factual basis?
Well, factual, obviously, they could put it on a factual basis if any number of, whether there's that many people, the timing, all of that. It's just once you have ordinances, the implementation of it puts a whole new layers of where you're at. Do other towns have something similar to this?
Frankly, they do not, because what most of them do, and I don't know if Justin wants to speak to some of this too. What most of them seem to do is say, you can't use a piece of property for a gathering of people like this after a certain hour. And if you do, some of them treated those as like a private club. And so it said if you're doing that use, then it's a private, you're acting as a private club or a nightclub or whatever, that would have in itself have had some, permitting stuff they had to do beforehand, and if they didn't do it, then they're in violation. Or another way to say that is, right now, your private club, say, 250 feet or 500?
Private clubs is 500.
So, if you were going to say, if you have 10 or more people on this piece of property after, in the same sort of definition, between the hours of midnight and 7 a.m., then that you are operating a private club, and that says you can't be within 500 feet of an occupied, of a residential use, is the way the UDO approaches it. So,
If you had, like, a private residence had a party and there were 20 people there at midnight, that's not doesn't suddenly become a club.
It would under this ordinance, not club, but under this ordinance here, it would be a violation.
And I don't think that we're stopping a party at 12, but what we're doing is stopping the noise at 12. Or attempting to stop the noise, am I
well,
all base there?
here's one hitch in that, is that in some of the ordinances that Justin found that were more land use related said, I think it was Atlantic Beach has a thing that says if you're operating a gathering space of any kind, I guess it would not be in a residential use anyhow. is not a consideration in their ordinance, but it says if you're gonna operate that, then you have to comply with their noise ordinance, and we don't currently have a noise ordinance. So that, and if we had one, believe me, it would have referenced it. It would have said, you know, if you're within 250 feet and violating the noise ordinance, then, you know,
And
it'd be a different kind of
I had
sanction.
about the land use. I think land use is something that's probably ultimately needed, so for going businesses forward, so if a business comes 6 months from now and wants to open a business like this, then you can give them the restrictions and the, you know, everything. But if, without the police power, when now, the ones that are existing, with the new ordinance, there would just be non-conforming uses and you couldn't make them stop without the police power. Because can't go back on something that was already existing once you've changed the ordinance. It's non-conforming until, you know, that business closes for 180 days or stops or moves. If they moved, then they'd have to meet. But if they stayed in place. So that's why the police power gives you some teeth now, and then land use is long-range teeth, so you make sure they're not going in areas you don't want them to.
Just,
You're saying you need both?
I think so.
I think a transition at least,
Yeah.
to say, you know, it may need to be a police power ordinance to start with and transition to land use.
so families get together and they're up after midnight, and the neighbor calls. So the police have authority to come get a citation in your home because after midnight, there's more than 10 of you gathered in a party type of an atmosphere. I'm not willing to go there. I'm not.
I'll let them call you next time at midnight.
I don't like knee-jerk
I don't
responses.
think this is knee-jerk, Mr. Collins. We've been hashing it over and over and over for several years now, and the police department has nothing, absolutely nothing they can do right now. And we've got I think, some pretty bad drinking going. And that's okay, I guess. But I also think that we've got the situation, we owe it to the public to do something. And if we don't do something and something terrible happens, and we could have done something, have we been negligent? That's my feeling. And I would be with you a little bit more if this is the first time this has come up, but it is not. It's come up for several years. And we tried and tried. We worked with police to come up with some kind of solution, and this is the only good solution I have seen to try to help our police and our citizens out who are affected by this.
Oh, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's fine.
The town manager just bring to my attention that it seems to be that where we've had difficulty with this kind of circumstance, it has been somebody trying to operate a business to do this. Is
Exactly right.
At the base of it. So, and I do agree with her that I think it gives me a little more comfort, and it may avoid some of the difficulties that have been pointed out about interfering with private, non-commercial use of properties, to maybe say, we're going to define it as, the operation of a for-profit business.
If we're sitting here trying to figure out ways at this point in time to adjust it, now ain't the time to vote on something like this. Let's get it settled if we're going to.
Okay. All right, any further discussion from the board? I'll call for a motion. If there is a motion and a second to adopt it as presented, the resolution of the ordinance as presented. Someone want to make the motion?
I feel like there's still a lot of questions out there as to what we're making the motion on. I mean, I understand the ordinance, and I agree we need to do something. But is it a broad spectrum? Is it, just commercial? I think that's gotta be hashed out before we can just make the motion, yeah, we're gonna pass this
don't
ordinance.
feel that this is knee-jerk, but I do have questions as to the clarity of the wording of the ordinance and the definition of what a nuisance gathering is.
I think this has been adequately vetted. We've looked at every way in the world to handle this. And I just, frankly, I don't understand the reluctance to adopt this. I don't know what the liability of adopting this is.
Because it needs to be clarified. There
What-
needs to be more clarity on it and it not just be a meaning of, I mean, we've sat here and
Just 10
there's
people
not,
after midnight.
right, there's no clarity as to who it.
I was also
We
curious,
went from
what's,
10 people to a commercial.
I think you got the
So-
same,
No, I can't vote on that because I don't have clarity as to what I'm voting on.
what would make it clear to you?
I don't know, but I mean,
Specifics.
as the wording is now, that's my mom's house on Christmas Eve. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we're
We don't mean to
bother anybody.
It's a real problem.
and how do they make the determination of excess sound versus not excess sound? I know that's always a challenge.
And we
We
don't.
can't define noise.
Yeah.
We can't define noise. All right, I sense that there is no will of this board to adopt this ordinance.
As
I don't want to let it go.
as presented, no,
And
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Mayor, I promise you, we will work toward having an ordinance review committee and a new draft by your July meeting. I can also suggest that you might consider, but we wouldn't have the ordinance drafted to do it. We'll bring you a new recommendation July 3rd. I think the board is moving as fast as you reasonably can to try to address this problem. And anybody who wants to, you know, that has a question about that, that's the answer. I mean, you're dealing with it as quickly as we safely can.
What do we do if we get another situation between now and then to give the police some power to act? I don't know. Okay, we'll move on. All right, we're going forward a sexually oriented business ordinance.
It's a good meeting.
I didn't bring this one up.
It was brought to our attention that if one applies all of the restrictions in your sexually oriented business ordinance to the land use map, what it does is says that a sexually oriented business as defined can only go in an industrial zone, and it has to be 500 feet, Justin, I'm not doing this alone.
500 feet away, you can't see nothing.
When you actually, and I don't know when this was adopted, whether anybody actually looked at it, when you actually map that out, the only place you can have a business like that is part of the Shaw property, and it's on about 10 feet right on the riverbank. Now, I know we don't think a whole lot of that kind of business, but we may have to. The difficulty with that is that the reason you even have an ordinance like that, if you could just outlaw sexually oriented businesses, I'm sure the town would have done that in 2003, 2005, when this ordinance got adopted. As it's drafted, it is not enforceable, and we need to look at an amendment to make it so. To do that, what we have asked for you to do, and those get distributed.
No, you've got it there.
I apologize for the last minute nature of this, but we're not going to know what this is until the planning board has had an opportunity to review this for us. We're asking you to forward to the planning board a text amendment to amend sexually oriented businesses ordinance to meet the law. We think that can be accomplished by just a narrowing of the restricted area, and that's
It's 1,000 feet right now.
is 1,000 feet. So, I'm happy to entertain any questions you have, but it's something that's a legal necessity.
Well, so I remember this. I voted against the sexually oriented business ordinance because I felt there was some First Amendment problems with
There are,
it.
and
There's
having
some serious ones.
And that's why you only can do it in zone, you do it through land,
Yes.
you can't.
And there have been lawsuits about having effectively zoned them out, and that's, we can't do that either.
And if we lose an argument like that, then it's all done,
Yes, sir.
not just scaled back. It's an opportunity to keep it a little more likely to withstand the appeal, it sounds like.
A little like, was it Justice Frankfurt that said,
I can't
you
define
can't
acidity, but
define
I know
porn,
when I
but
see
you knew
it.
it when you saw it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the situation with our so-called sexually oriented business owners. Okay, we'll entertain a motion to send this over to the planning board and let them wrestle with it.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if we could go ahead and schedule a public hearing July 3rd on this very question.
On the sexually oriented business,
Yes.
okay? Entertain a motion to that effect.
I will say that.
All right. All in favor? All right, Madam Manager, I have no further business. Anybody around the board have any business they want to bring before the board? If not, the last item is the Town of Franklin employee luncheons, Friday, June the 30th, 12 o'clock. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Stand adjourned.